Hey everyone, welcome back to the Caring Conference. And Tanya is going to talk to us about how to climb that emotional staircase to find our feeling better. So Tanya, take it away.
Thank you so much, Denise, and everyone. I'm really excited about presenting today one of the greatest treasures of my caregiving years, and that is climbing the emotional staircase. So I'm going to jump right in and let you know that today I'm going to be talking to you about mindset practices. And I'm going to start by sharing with you how I define mindset practices and why I feel they are like the ultimate in family caregiver self-care, because it was for me one of the most important self-care practices that I had. And I'm going to share with you something that I call the emotional staircase, because it was a foundational mindset practice for me. But before I can jump into that, I want to tell you a little bit about my caregiver story, which I'm going to do in 3 phases, which I don't know why. Oh, I'm going to have to use my mouse. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about my caregiver story in 3 phases. Phase 1, I'm going to call that one Merry Ignorance. I thought I was going to take this new job, move back to New York, and I was going to help my mom by maybe taking her grocery shopping or writing some checks, because that's what I had done for my dad. But I wasn't back in New York and in this new job for even maybe a week before I recognized that my mother's cognitive decline was very much more advanced than I could have even imagined, being with her day to day. So this phase of Merry Ignorance lasted a very, very short time. And I was easily in phase 2, the end of which I call ground down. So if I fast forward 6 years from there, I was absolutely ground down. I was in decline as my mother was in physical and cognitive decline over that time, to the point where 6 years forward, my 2 bosses pulled me together and called me to a meeting and said, "We really think you need to take intermittent leave." It was either that or leave. I mean, they didn't say that, but that's kind of where we were, because I had absolutely stopped performing on my job. I had kind of lost my sense of who I was, what my life was about at that time. Now, around that time, my mom had a second stroke that rendered her incapacitated, and I decided that I would step away. And the important decision here was not stepping away from the job, but stepping away from my career to be one of my mom's full-time caregivers. And at that time, I made a decision that I would not only, and that put me into, that put me into phase 3, making that decision. And I call that climbing out of the hole. Because once I made that decision, I was thinking, not only did I want to recover my sense of who I was, but I wanted to make my life even better. My thought was, if I'm going to be home for however long this is going to be, because that uncertainty is part of stepping into the caregiver role as a primary and total caregiver. But I was going to make my mom's life the best possible life it could be, given whatever the circumstances were in. I was going to support her in having the best possible life, but I was going to do the same for myself, and no longer use my job as a way to hide all the things that maybe on the outside my life looked great, but on the inside I wasn't necessarily satisfied with how I was living my life. So mindset. So this was all about the mind. I understood that I was putting myself on a path to change. So I define mindset practices as the intentional use of my thoughts to change my emotional state. And the reason I call mindset practices the ultimate in caregiver self-care is because you can use them anytime, anywhere. So for instance, I was caring for my mom. My shift was the 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. shift. So walking up the stairs at 2 o'clock in the morning to check on my mom, and then getting up the stairs and finding that, because of however the sheets were and how she was moving that night, and maybe she voided or had bowel movement, that I might have to totally change the sheets at 2 in the morning. So I could either make that I can't believe it. I can't believe I'm doing this. Did I give up my important job or whatever to be doing this? But how was I going to create the, because I don't like routine. I never saw myself as being a nurse. How was I going to, use this, have this as my life and have it move my life forward? So, sitting in the emergency room, and it's freezing cold and there aren't enough chairs, and I don't want to get out of my chair because I want to keep my chair. So what am I going to be doing? What am I going to be thinking about? This is how many times am I going to be in the emergency room? What does this mean? What is it going to be when I get home? So there were so many triggers that happen and challenges that happen through caregiving that gave me the opportunity to develop skills for my life. And so the emotional staircase, what I call the staircase of emotional well-being, is part of my foundational practice. So it is my adaptation of the Abraham Hicks emotional guidance system or scale. So if you were to go online and you were to Google emotional guidance scale, you'd have everybody's different picture. How would you picture how do you create an image that describes this particular tool? So I decided, to me, it sounded like a staircase. So I, in my head, had created a staircase. And what it is 32 emotional states that are listed on 22 steps, right? And at the bottom rung, we have powerlessness, despair, fear, grief, depression. We have those emotions that are most detached, that feeling of emptiness, powerlessness. So they're at the bottom, and then all the way up to the top, we have joy, knowledge, enthusiasm, eagerness, which all have a similar energy at the top of upliftment, joy, a lightness. And so one of the principles of using the staircase is you can't get to the bottom rung up to the top in one step. Just as in any staircase, right? If you've got 12 steps to get from the bottom of your first floor to the second floor, you don't do it in one leap. You have to go step by step. And so the staircase of emotional well-being follows that same principle. You can move from depression up to jealousy, up to anger, and you can move up to joy. And if you have the skill and you know how to do this, you can do it in a matter of minutes. So it's not that it takes a long time. It's just like you can run up the stairs, you can get up these emotional stairs very quickly. And it is something that I did. I remember the first time I used this, my mother's caregiver, one of the caregivers came into the kitchen and she says to me, "I noticed that you went out this morning. Where did you go?" And we had been working together long enough for me to finally say to her, "Would you please respect my privacy and please do not keep asking me where I'm, what I'm doing." And I handled it professionally on the outside, but I can tell you I left the house right after that just seething. And because I'd learned to do that in my professional life, handle everything so everything's going well. But inside, I was not necessarily emotionally savvy or skilled. And I was just, oh my goodness, here she is. She's so nosy. She's always asking me where I am. And then she doesn't do this. And when I tell her not to feed my mother and treat her like a baby, she does it. And so my brain is just spiraling. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, I heard about that emotional scale thing. How am I feeling right now? Well, I'm feeling angry. And I was like, I'm angry, but you did handle it. And but maybe she won't, she said she wouldn't, but maybe what if she asks me the next time? So now I'm into worry. And then I just started walking myself, worry, but what are you worried about? You'll handle it. And isn't it silly? Didn't you see yourself handle it before? Why are you so angry now? Are you angry about that? Maybe you just kind of stressed and you're just looking for something to stress up. But I really don't feel like stressing. And as you hear my voice going up, so is my emotional state lifting. And so I was really excited that I had managed to I had heard about this thing, YouTube video, and I was actually able to put it into practice and have it work for me. So one of the things that's interesting is that in the book, Asking It is Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks, they show the emotional guidance scale just like this. And the example that they use in the book is to demonstrate how to use the scale is a woman who, her father was dying, and she was with her father every day, every moment, because she wanted to be with him, as he was transitioning out. And she steps away, and when she steps away, her father passes. And so they start so she's at the bottom, she's feeling powerless, despaired, she's depressed, she really wanted to be there. She had made so much of an effort. And then they give an example of walking her up through each of these 22 steps to working herself up to an experience of joy. And I'd never seen this book, never read the book at the time, and hadn't actually seen the scale. But when I did get it, I thought it was really wonderful that was the example that they used to help demonstrate how to use the emotional guidance scale. So as much as I used it and I found it valuable, I thought it was a little complicated. So I decided to make it a little more, to simplify it for myself. And I started thinking of myself as being in one of three states. Either I was in a suffering state, a neutral state, or a beautiful state. And that I would get into the habit of, of creating mindset practices for myself so that I could practice what would it be like to intentionally be in a beautiful state more often. So I used, so I would get into the habit of scanning for how I feel, deciding if I wanted to move my state or not, and take action. And what I mean is I wasn't going to wait until I was frustrated because my brother told me he was coming to the city and I could have a respite, and then he'd call and say, oh, did I say I was coming this weekend? Oh, I forgot, and then move me from, once I'm happy and now I'm sad and now I'm angry. My goal is to be able to stay in a higher state more often. So if I just simply had gone out to take a walk, right? I'm in New York City, so we do a lot of walking. And, if I wasn't thinking about anything in particular, I would find that my mind would naturally start finding my way to start thinking about caregiving. What if I'm out of the house and this time, and the caregiver is not paying attention to mom? Then that's a terrible thing. Should I be outside? And did the incontinence supplies didn't come, and I'm running out of money? And so, there's all kinds of thoughts that could flood me when I actually was going out for a walk to take a break. So those were the times when I could actually practice, go into some kind of a mindset practice so that I would be ready for when the more challenging times came. So one of my favorite, the most simple exercise, much more simple than the one that I just described in terms of moving up that very complicated set of stairs, but moving in my more simplified bottom neutral beautiful state was I play the alphabet game. And it's a much simpler way to stop my thoughts or to stop thoughts from spiraling down. And doing the alphabet game, it's very, very, very simple. I would just bring to mind a fruit that starts with the letter A, and I would just go A, and just start naming fruits to trying to get to Z. And it probably would look something like this, apple, blueberry, cantaloupe, dates. What was I doing? Especially if I was in the grip of some annoying thought. Oh, wait a minute, let me just start again. Apple, blueberry, cantaloupe, date, elderberry, food. And by the time I got to some letter, chances are I never got to Z, my state had changed. Okay? And so that's the simplest exercise that I had, that I actually could feel that in my emotional state either bottom out or shift or just change I basically would change my focus with that. But there's another way to use the alphabet game in terms of developing that ability or that consciousness about feeling at, putting myself in that even higher state just for no reason at all, just because it's Saturday at 2 o'clock. And why can't I just feel at a higher, more beautiful state? So there's a second way to use the alphabet game. And so I'm going to invite us all to participate in that together. So and this is how it is. It's very simple. Same way. You start with A, and you're going to start with any kind of word that puts you in, that's a, like a positive feeling state. So for instance, I might start with abracadabra and beautiful and colorful, and kind of go on down and just keep going down the alphabet. So what I'm going to ask each person to do is to, actually, I didn't think I needed to do that. I actually could have stayed where I was, right? That's right, because I'm sharing my screen. And I'm going to, actually, I wanted to mute. Am I able to mute myself from here? I think I am. So I was going to invite everyone to, I don't know if I can do it. So I was going to invite everybody to do it out loud, or you can just do it in your head. I mean, when I do this exercise walking down the street, one of the wonderful things about wearing masks was that I could have a mask and actually talk or sing out loud, which is something I often do when I'm during our mask days through COVID. But of course, this was before masks, and I would just actually do this exercise in my head. So I'm going to do this exercise in my head, and I'm going to invite each of you to engage in this alphabet game, starting with A and going through to, I don't know, try to get through, I don't know, M, right? So that'll give us maybe about a minute. Maybe I'll give us a minute to do this. And so do it in your head. You can say it out loud. I'm going to do it in my head so that I'm not, you're not having to hear me. And so if you're game, let's play the alphabet game. Thinking of words, alphabetical order, generate positive feelings, and pay attention to what's happening to you or how you're feeling as you are going through the alphabet. Starting from now.
And you're at 7 minutes left, Tanya.
Thank you. My dogs in the neighborhood. Okay, so I think that was about a minute, and I'm just going to ask for people just to jump in and say, what did you, is there any word that you came up with that particularly made you smile or you were surprised at? You can just unmute and share up, and I'm going backwards. That is my next one.
I can also share what's happening in the chat room. So Carolyn has said, I'm surprised at the words that are coming into my head. My energy is lifting. I feel happier and more energized. And some of the words are affirmation and beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. So this is just simply one of the simplest of the little practices, as we're saying, that you can have just at any time. For me, it was part of meeting that goal of creating an ironclad mindset. And of course, doing this was, yes, it was for me, and it was supporting me in being able to be there for my mom during, this incredible experience we were having that we certainly hadn't planned on. I hadn't planned on stepping away from my job. She hadn't planned on being incapacitated and aphasic and having rheumatoid arthritis and having dementia. And, and there we were. And this allowed me to be in my own development, as I was also learning everything there was to know that I didn't know about caregiving, and was frustratingly learning day to day, moment to moment to moment. So,
could I mention something, Tanya? I find this with Wordle. Wordle helps me think of 5-letter words throughout my day. And that's been a way for me to take myself out of an anxious moment, is to just think of Wordle and what 5-letter words I could start guessing tomorrow.
Not surprising. I'm a Wordle. Before Wordle, it was another game that was on Game Show, and I used to do it all the time. And it also was 5 letters, and now it's kind of transformed into Wordle. And so, yes, absolutely. So that is it. Sharing with you how I use my adaptation, and how I use the emotional staircase. And so I thank you for allowing me to share that with you as part of my one of the things that supported me in transforming my life through caregiving. And for more tools on shifting one's emotional state through the challenges of caregiving, my book will be out on Amazon in May 2020. 6 life hacks for family caregivers. Be your own coach and beat burnout, because that's what I was. I decided to make myself my own client and be my own coach through the caregiving experience. And you can meet me and find me and link with me on LinkedIn, or you can meet me for coffee any Tuesday, on Tuesday mornings, 8:30 a.m. There's a meetup group, coffee with, it's called Caregivers Thrive Café. There's the Zoom link, but you can always just link in with me in LinkedIn, and I'll get you in. So yeah, let's meet for coffee. Would love to chat and meet one-to-one. That is me.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much.
Thank you.